So in a previous episode, we talked about the virtual desk. In fact, I think I called it the virtual conference room. In these challenging times, we're doing more and more things virtual, and I think a virtual conference room, a virtual communication desk is really an important thing, not just for now, but I think it's with us for the future. Now, there's many facets to this desk, and we kind of just alluded to some of them in the past. So in this episode, we're going to start with the camera. And the first way we're going to look is the laptop. This is a MacBook Pro, and this is a pretty common way that people are doing these virtual calls. And so with this, I think the thing that happens the most is it'll get sat on a table, and you're seated, I'm standing, but you're seated and the screen is tilted back. And if you notice in most of your calls that there's this upward look at the individual, and if you got a nose like mine, maybe you don't want to be looking up my nose, right? Or your backdrop, what does that look like? You'll see in this laptop shot, you're looking up at the ceiling. And so you're seeing ceilings, you're seeing things that are a little bit different, things that maybe shouldn't be in the camera shot. And the best way to solve that problem is figure out how you're going to fix your camera. So maybe what you can do is, this is a stack of tablets, it's way not high enough, but figure out what that is. Tilt that screen back down, get a good shot coming directly at you, and be able to have a better shot that's going to give you a better backdrop, not look at the ceiling, not look upward. And I don't know, I think when you're looking upward, that's kind of an ominous shot as it is. I don't even think it's a good shot and one that's really flattering. So I think getting that camera up there, I think that is really, something that makes a lot of sense. And maybe that's the first tip of one of the things that you might be able to do. Now, to get away from the laptop, or we can still use a laptop, but how can we get a better picture than the laptop? And so computers, a lot of them now have a webcam built in. This Mac, this 27-inch iMac does. When I was talking with Apple the other day and we were talking about this camera, they were saying to me, it really wasn't designed for the heavy virtual use that people are using them for today. I think they're running at about 720p. It's a very small camera lens. It's certainly not as good as my iPhone. And while it's a little bit better maybe than the laptop, I still don't think that that may be the right feel, because you're tied to a computer, tied to a desk. What if you're going to stand? Or what if there's a little bit of movement? Maybe we need an external camera. And so let's talk about cameras. So we're going to start with DSLR. So DSLR cameras, you'll hear a lot of people talk about them. They're pretty much were designed for photo, and then they've been adapted to shoot video. And they were an affordable way of being able to shoot video more high-end with a high-end lens that would give you a more cinematic way of capturing video. And this one happens to be a 5D Mark III. The only drawback with a DSLR being used at a virtual desk is that many of them stop recording at 29 minutes and 59 seconds. If it's at a virtual desk, you're going to have to stop in the middle of your presentation at 30 minutes, and you're going to have to go around and restart the camera and reset it again. I know there are DSLRs that don't do that. And so I know the Panasonic GH4 or GH5 doesn't. I know our A7s from Sony don't, and you're just going to have to check that out. But I will say the image quality of these cameras is 10 times, 20 times better. You will look so much better on your call through a DSLR than anything. Before I talk about the one we have up here, let's talk about some other things that we've got to think about. One of them is power. So if we're looking at the Canon, well, it's got a pretty good size battery, but getting set up, getting the camera on, you may just run out of battery before you finish your call. So even if you have one, a camera that goes longer than 30 minutes, the battery may be your limiting factor. The other solutions with that are to get maybe a fake battery, where it's a battery that goes up inside your camera, but then can go into a block and it can be power. Now you're talking. Now you have power going to the camera. It's the size of the battery. The camera thinks it's got a fully charged battery, and that battery never goes down. So let's talk about the camcorder that we've been using at our desk. And it's not a DSLR, it's a camcorder. It's a Sony, it's a 4K model. It's got a Zeiss lens in it. Everything's auto on it. Now, it's not a cheap camera. A lot of these upper level DSLRs can go between $2,000 and $3,000 and $4,000. And if you want to invest that, a DSLR is the way to go. If you're looking for a cheaper option, I can tell you that we use this Sony 4K camera. And yes, they have a battery, but they also have a power cord solution. So with this camera, it runs continuously. There's no worry about time. The image is pretty good. The color science isn't that bad. It's a good quality camera, and we actually have 3 of them. So you can see that we have one right here, and I use this one pretty much every day. And we have another Sony in the ceiling. So it sets up, it's mounted on a tripod. We even put a screen underneath it. And that screen allows us to see the person we're talking to while we're looking into the camera. So here's the next question. How the heck do you connect this camera to this computer? And so we do that with something called a capture card. And we use this Magewell. It's their Gen 2 capture card. I have it down in the description. You can click on that. I think it's one of the better ones that are out there. I read some of the reviews and everybody raved, but a few people said it heated up. I gotta tell you, we run these things for hours and hours on end, and they stay fairly cool. This really does an amazing job. It has a USB 3 connection, so the moment that you connect it right up to the computer, it automatically sees it as a camera device, and it's that simple. So connecting the capture card to your computer is done through an HDMI cord. HDMI is the standard type of cabling that connects to these capture cards and carries a lot of video signals in your house, and you're probably very familiar with them. So there's 2 that I have here. I have a mini HDMI. You'll see that that is a little bit smaller in size to an actual HDMI connector, so it's about half the size. And the mini HDMI we would use into a Canon or the cameras that utilize that cable. So we can then hook this directly into the capture card, right? And now the computer is going to notice this camera. We turn the camera on, that camera's live. It's now a choice in any of your software. And now you have a camera linked up to the computer. The other HDMI connector would be what's called a micro HDMI. And in that case, you can see the difference, the size of a micro HDMI. And micro HDMIs will click directly into the side of the camera and do the exact same thing, HDMI on the other end, right into the capture card, and that's how that works. Some cameras actually have a full HDMI, and you don't have to worry about special cords. Although this is something to think about. If you're using a special cord, they're not going to be long enough sometimes to get into your camera. So then we'll just use an HDMI to HDMI connection, and then you can connect 2 HDMI cords together to get you a longer cord if your camera happens to be farther away. I think it's a great idea to have an external camera and set up to your virtual desk, making sure that it can run straight through without any resetting or having to re-hit buttons. You don't even have to use the camera to capture the video. It's all captured through your software, and we're going to get into that. But having power, being able to have capture cards, having the right camera and setup, I think is really important. So I think that's it for this show. If you like this content, if you want to stay in touch on this series, if you want to see the other pieces, please subscribe. If you want to be notified, please hit the bell icon, and we would love to hear from you. So please comment, let us know what you're thinking, let us know what ideas you have, let us know what you're doing in this new virtual environment, and maybe you have the next best great idea for how we can modify this desk to do even more. So we'll see you on the next show.